There's a moment in every relationship when something just feels off. You can't quite put your finger on it, but the energy between you and your partner has changed. Conversations that once flowed effortlessly now feel strained, their gaze lingers somewhere else instead of meeting yours, and the warmth that once defined your bond starts to fade into an unfamiliar chill. At first, you may brush it off, blaming stress, work, or life's usual distractions. But deep down, something nags at you, a feeling you can't ignore. It's the unsettling realization that they may be falling for someone else. Emotional detachment doesn't always announce itself with grand gestures or obvious betrayals. Sometimes, it creeps in like a quiet storm, slowly eroding the foundation of your relationship. You begin to notice that their laughter feels forced, their presence feels absent even when they're right beside you, and their words no longer carry the same sincerity they once did. And perhaps the most painful part? They don't seem to notice, or worse, they don't seem to care. If you've ever found yourself in this position, you know how deeply it hurts. The person who once made you feel seen, valued, and cherished now seems distant. It's as if their heart is no longer in the same place, as if their attention, their emotions, and their affections are being redirected elsewhere. And when love starts slipping through your fingers, the uncertainty can be agonizing. Is it all in your head? Are you being paranoid? Or is your intuition screaming at you for a reason? The truth is, when someone is falling for another person, the signs are there, they just aren't always easy to recognize at first. People don't always admit when their feelings are shifting. In fact, they might not even realize it themselves until it's too late. But the subtle changes in their words, actions, and habits tell a story that their lips refuse to speak. The way they respond to your touch, the way they prioritize their time, and even the way they talk about someone new can all be indicators of an emotional shift. That's why it's so important to pay attention, to trust your instincts, and to recognize the undeniable signs before you find yourself in a situation where you're left wondering what went wrong. In this video, we'll uncover the hidden clues that reveal when someone is emotionally drifting away. Some signs will be obvious, while others may surprise you. But one thing is for sure, once you recognize them, you'll no longer be left in the dark. By the end of this, you'll have the clarity you need to understand what's really happening in your relationship. And more importantly, you'll know how to navigate the situation, whether that means confronting your partner, working to rebuild the connection, or making the difficult decision to let go. Because when someone is falling for another, the truth will always find a way to reveal itself. And today we're going to uncover it together. At first, it's easy to dismiss emotional distance as a phase. Maybe they're stressed, preoccupied with work, or just need some space. But as the days turn into weeks, you start to notice a pattern. The effortless conversations you once shared now feel like a chore. Where you used to talk for hours about everything and nothing, now their responses are clipped, almost robotic. You ask about their day and they give you a one-word answer. You try to start a meaningful discussion, and they either change the subject or respond with vague indifference. It's not just about the words they say, it's about the ones they don't. The emotional connection that once made your relationship feel safe and fulfilling starts to fade. They no longer confide in you the way they used to. Those deep, late-night talks where they shared their fears, dreams, and wildest ambitions have disappeared. You realize you don't really know what's going on in their life anymore because they no longer let you in. It's as if they've built an invisible wall, and no matter how much you try to reach them, you can't seem to break through. The most painful part? You can feel it happening, but they won't acknowledge it. They act as if nothing is wrong, but their actions tell a different story. When someone is emotionally invested in a relationship, they naturally want to share their thoughts and experiences with their partner. But when that emotional investment shifts elsewhere, whether to a new person or simply away from you, the desire to connect begins to wither. They're physically present, but emotionally they're miles away. And no matter how much you try to hold on, it feels like they're already slipping through your fingers. In a healthy relationship, genuine interest in each other's lives comes naturally. Your partner asks about your day, checks in on your emotions, and remembers the little things that matter to you. But when they start falling for someone else, that interest begins to fade, slowly at first, then all at once. You begin to notice that they don't ask about your day anymore. When you share something exciting or vent about a stressful situation, their responses feel empty, more like a formality than actual engagement. Instead of asking follow-up questions or offering support, they nod absent-mindedly, distracted by their own thoughts. It feels as if they're just waiting for the conversation to end rather than truly listening to what you have to say. Then, the small but meaningful details start slipping through the cracks. Birthdays, anniversaries, or even the things that used to bring you joy, suddenly they forget. They used to bring you coffee just the way you liked it, surprise you with thoughtful gestures, or remember your favorite songs. Now they barely acknowledge important moments, and when you remind them, they shrug it off as if it's no big deal. You start to wonder if you're asking for too much, but deep down, you know the truth: you're simply not their priority anymore. The shift in their priorities becomes even clearer in the way they spend their time. Once, they would move things around just to be with you. Now they always seem busy, working late, making plans that don't include you, or finding excuses to spend time elsewhere. You no longer feel like the center of their world. Instead, it feels like you're standing on the outside, watching them drift away, wondering if they even notice they're losing you. One of the most confusing and painful signs that someone is emotionally detaching is their sudden and unpredictable mood swings. One moment they're affectionate and kind, as if everything is fine. The next, they're cold, distant, and irritated by the smallest things. It's as if you're walking on eggshells, never knowing what kind of reaction you'll get. They seem to have less patience with you. Things that never used to bother them now trigger frustration. Your habits, your jokes, even just asking a simple question. A conversation that used to flow naturally now feels like a potential landmine, as if anything you say could set them off. They sigh more, roll their eyes, and give short, dismissive answers. And yet, when they interact with others, especially the person they might be falling for, they seem lighthearted and full of energy. It's hard not to notice the difference. Then there are the moments of unexpected affection, gestures that seem to come out of nowhere. They might suddenly hold your hand, kiss you more passionately, or say something sweet. At first, you cling to these moments, hoping they mean things are getting better. But just as quickly as they appear, they disappear again, replaced by even more distance. This cycle of warmth and coldness isn't love, it's guilt. Deep down, they know they're pulling away, and these fleeting moments of affection are their way of compensating for it. Even when they're physically present, they feel miles away. They avoid making eye contact, fidget with their phone, or stare off into the distance when you talk. It's as if their mind is elsewhere, preoccupied with thoughts they won't share. And in your heart, you start to realize, you may still be in the same relationship, but you're no longer in the same emotional space. One of the most unsettling signs that someone is falling for another person is when they start bringing them up in conversation. Frequently, casually, and sometimes even with admiration. At first, you may not think much of it. They mention a new coworker, a friend from the gym, or someone from their social circle. It seems innocent enough, but then their name keeps coming up. Again and again. At first, it might just be harmless anecdotes, stories about something funny that person said or how talented they are at something. But over time, you start noticing a shift. Your partner begins comparing you to them, sometimes subtly, sometimes more directly. Maybe they comment on how driven this other person is, or how they have such a great sense of humor. Then they start pointing out the differences. You used to be more spontaneous, kind of like, name is. They really know how to handle situations like this. What once felt like innocent mentions now feel like small daggers to your confidence. The most painful part? It's not always framed as criticism. Sometimes, it's disguised as admiration. They praise this person in ways that feel oddly excessive, going out of their way to highlight their qualities almost as if they're defending them. You start to feel a strange tension, an unspoken shift in where their admiration is being directed. And when you express discomfort, they dismiss it, telling you that you're overreacting, being insecure, or imagining things. But deep down, you know you're not imagining it. You can feel it. Their interest is drifting elsewhere, and the comparisons they make aren't just casual observations. They're a reflection of where their attention, admiration, and possibly even their emotions are slowly shifting. There was a time when your partner would casually leave their phone lying around, not thinking twice about it. They wouldn't mind if you picked it up to check the time or played music on it while driving. But now, something has changed. Their phone has practically become an extension of their body, always in their pocket, always face down on the table, and never left unattended. If you happen to reach for it, even just by accident, they snatch it away with an uneasy laugh or a defensive remark. One of the biggest red flags is a sudden change in how they handle their phone. Maybe they've changed their password and conveniently forgot to mention it. Or they suddenly enable fingerprint or face recognition access, ensuring that only they can unlock it. If you ask about it, they might downplay the change, claiming it's for security reasons, or that they're just being more cautious about privacy. But the timing feels suspicious, especially when paired with other strange behaviors. Then there's the newfound habit of taking calls in private. It starts small, stepping into another room for a work call, or answering in a hushed voice. But over time it becomes a pattern. They no longer take calls when you're around, or if they do, they keep their responses vague and brief, ending the conversation quickly. If you ask who it was, they offer a dismissive response. Just a friend? No one important? Or worse, they get irritated as if you've invaded their space. But perhaps the most painful sign is when they're texting someone and smiling, completely immersed in the conversation, but when you ask what's funny they brush it off. Nothing, just a meme, they say, but they don't show you. They turn their phone away, their fingers typing quickly, their eyes lit up with a spark you haven't seen in a while. And that's when it hits you. They're sharing a part of themselves with someone else. The laughter, the inside jokes, the excitement. The kind of connection they once had with you is now being reserved for someone else, and no matter how much you try to ignore it, the signs are becoming impossible to deny. Social media often serves as a reflection of what's happening in real life, and when someone starts falling for another person, their online behavior can reveal more than they realize. One of the first things you might notice is how much attention they're giving to a particular person's post. At first, it seems harmless, just a few likes here and there. But then it becomes excessive. They're liking nearly everything this person posts, leaving comments that seem a little too enthusiastic, or even engaging in playful banter that wasn't there before. You scroll through their activity and notice that they're interacting more with this person than with you. Meanwhile, their posts about your relationship have either slowed down or disappeared altogether. They used to post pictures of the two of you, sweet captions, or even small glimpses into your life together. Now it's like you don't exist. If you ask about it, they might claim they just don't post much anymore. But oddly enough, they seem to have plenty of time to engage with someone else's content. Perhaps the most concerning sign is secrecy. They become more careful about their digital footprint, deleting messages or clearing chat histories. If you happen to glance at their phone while they're using it, they quickly switch apps or turn the screen away. You might even catch them logging out of accounts or enabling vanish mode on social media conversations. Features designed to erase messages after they're read. When you confront them, they act defensive, saying things like, "Why are you so paranoid?" or, "I just value my privacy." But deep down you know something isn't right. Social media is often where emotional affairs begin, where flirty messages turn into late-night conversations, and where boundaries start to blur. And when someone is emotionally invested elsewhere, their online actions will reflect it, no matter how hard they try to hide it. One of the clearest signs that someone's heart is drifting elsewhere is when they start spending significantly less time with you. It doesn't happen overnight, it's gradual, subtle at first, and easy to excuse. They start staying late at work more often, claiming they're just busy, or that there's a big project demanding their attention. But something about their explanation doesn't quite add up. Their workload hasn't changed, yet they always seem to have a reason to be out longer than usual. Then there are the unexplained outings. They used to invite you along for errands, casual meetups, or even just a quick coffee run. But now they go alone, or worse, with someone they don't want you to know about. You might notice they start dressing differently before leaving, paying extra attention to their appearance, or seeming unusually excited about plans that have nothing to do with you. And when you ask where they're going, the answer is always vague. Just out for a bit. Meeting a friend. Nothing important. They offer just enough detail to satisfy a surface-level inquiry, but never enough to truly put your mind at ease. What stings the most is when they make plans and don't even think to include you. Weekend getaways with friends suddenly come up. Social gatherings that you would normally attend together now seem to be solo events. You're no longer a given in their schedule, you're an afterthought if you're even considered at all. And when you bring it up, they act like you're being unreasonable. "Can't I have a life outside of us?" they ask, turning the tables as if your concerns are unfounded. But you know the truth. Someone who values you, who wants to be with you, doesn't make a habit of pulling away. They don't create distance or secrecy where there once was openness. And as much as you want to believe their excuses, you can't ignore what's right in front of you, the unmistakable reality that their time, energy, and attention are being redirected elsewhere. One of the most telling signs that someone is emotionally invested elsewhere is a sudden and drastic change in their appearance, especially when it feels like it has nothing to do with you. At first it may seem harmless. They start dressing a little nicer, experimenting with new styles, or paying more attention to their grooming. Maybe they've always been casual about their appearance, but now they're putting extra effort into how they look every time they leave the house. They suddenly have a new haircut, wear clothes that flatter them more, or put extra time into getting ready, even for ordinary outings. Then there's the perfume or cologne. You notice that they're using it more frequently, sometimes even when they aren't going anywhere special. They spray it on before heading out to run errands, or before a supposedly casual meetup with friends. It's not just about smelling nice, it's about making an impression. And deep down, you can't shake the feeling that the impression isn't meant for you. Even more concerning is their renewed focus on self-improvement, hitting the gym more often, eating healthier, or developing new interests with an intensity that feels out of character. If they had always been interested in fitness, it wouldn't feel strange. But if they suddenly become obsessed with getting in shape or adopting a whole new lifestyle without including you, it raises questions. They used to enjoy relaxed nights with you, but now they're prioritizing personal transformation without ever asking if you want to be part of it. When you ask about these changes, they shrug it off. I just want to take better care of myself. It's for me, not anyone else. But their actions say otherwise. The way they glance at their phone right after checking themselves in the mirror, the way they seem more self-conscious about their appearance around certain people. It all points to something deeper. Someone who is falling for someone else often reinvents themselves to attract and impress them. And unfortunately, if you weren't the motivation for their changes, it might be because someone else is. Physical affection is one of the most intimate expressions of love, and when it starts to fade, it can be one of the most painful signs that something is wrong. At first, it's subtle. They stop reaching for your hand when you're walking together. The spontaneous hugs and forehead kisses that used to be second nature start to dwindle. You brush it off thinking maybe they're just stressed or tired. But as time goes on, the distance becomes undeniable. The kisses become routine, quick, emotionless, and lacking the warmth they once had. The long, meaningful embraces that made you feel safe and loved are now replaced with side hugs or worse, nothing at all. When you try to initiate closeness, they pull away, make an excuse, or subtly tense up as if your touch is no longer welcome. Even cuddling on the couch feels forced. They shift away or find reasons to stay on their phone instead of being present with you. Then comes the absence of intimacy. What used to be a natural and passionate connection starts to feel like an obligation, if it happens at all. They avoid eye contact when you try to get close, offering vague reasons why they're not in the mood. You start to feel like you're the only one trying while they seem distant, detached, or uninterested. It's as if the spark that once made your relationship special has been slowly fading away, and no matter how much you try to reignite it, they don't seem to care. The most heartbreaking part is when your relationship starts feeling more like a roommate situation than a romantic partnership. Conversations become transactional, discussing chores, responsibilities, and daily routines rather than sharing love and connection. You sleep next to each other, but the emotional and physical closeness is gone. And deep down, you wonder if their heart is already elsewhere, if their mind is consumed by thoughts of someone else, and if that's the reason why they no longer touch you the way they used to. Physical affection is one of the most intimate expressions of love, and when it starts to fade, it can be one of the most painful signs that something is wrong. At first, it's subtle. They stop reaching for your hand when you're walking together. The spontaneous hugs and forehead kisses that used to be second nature start to dwindle. You brush it off thinking maybe they're just stressed or tired. But as time goes on, the distance becomes undeniable. The kisses become routine, quick, emotionless, and lacking the warmth they once had. The long, meaningful embraces that made you feel safe and loved are now replaced with side hugs or worse, nothing at all. When you try to initiate closeness, they pull away, make an excuse, or subtly tense up as if your touch is no longer welcome. Even cuddling on the couch feels forced. They shift away or find reasons to stay on their phone instead of being present with you. Then comes the absence of intimacy. What used to be a natural and passionate connection starts to feel like an obligation, if it happens at all. They avoid eye contact when you try to get close, offering vague reasons why they're not in the mood. You start to feel like you're the only one trying while they seem distant, detached, or uninterested. It's as if the spark that once made your relationship special has been slowly fading away, and no matter how much you try to reignite it, they don't seem to care. The most heartbreaking part is when your relationship starts feeling more like a roommate situation than a romantic partnership. Conversations become transactional, discussing chores, responsibilities, and daily routines rather than sharing love and connection. You sleep next to each other, but the emotional and physical closeness is gone. And deep down, you wonder if their heart is already elsewhere, if their mind is consumed by thoughts of someone else, and if that's the reason why they no longer touch you the way they used to. One of the most revealing but often overlooked signs that someone is falling for another person is the way their friends start behaving around you. Even if your partner tries to hide their feelings, their friends, especially those who are aware of the situation, may unknowingly give it away. At first, it's just a slight change in energy. Mutual friends who once greeted you warmly now seem a little awkward, as if they don't know what to say. Conversations feel forced, and you start sensing that they're avoiding eye contact or steering clear of certain topics. You can't quite put your finger on it, but something feels off. If you try to talk about your relationship or mention your partner in a loving way, there's an uncomfortable silence or a quick subject change. It's almost as if they know something you don't. Then there are the accidental hints. A friend might casually mention your partner spending time with someone else, assuming you already knew. Or they might let something slip in passing, like a joke that doesn't sit right or a vague comment that suggests there's more going on than you realize. "Oh, you weren't at the event last weekend? I thought I saw them there with..." They stop mid-sentence, suddenly aware that they've said too much. When you ask for clarification, they fumble for words, acting like it was nothing. But in reality, it was something they weren't supposed to reveal. On the flip side, some friends may react by being unusually supportive or distant. Some might suddenly start checking in on you more often, asking how you're feeling as if they know you're going through something painful, even before you do. They might offer vague words of comfort as if preparing you for bad news. Others, however, might pull away entirely, avoiding interaction with you because they don't want to be caught in the middle of something messy. Their sudden absence can feel even more isolating, reinforcing the idea that something is happening behind your back. Friends often pick up on relationship changes before the people in the relationship do. They see the things you don't, the lingering glances, the secret conversations, the emotional shift. And while they may not always come out and say it directly, their behavior speaks volumes. If the people around you start acting differently, more distant, more secretive, or more hesitant in their interactions, it's a sign that something is happening. And unfortunately, it may not be something you want to hear. One of the most unsettling signs that your partner may be falling for someone else is when they become overly defensive about a particular person. What starts as a casual mention of this person in conversation quickly turns into a pattern. You hear their name more often than you'd like, and when you express even the slightest concern, your partner reacts with irritation or anger. At first, you might ask an innocent question like, "You've been spending a lot of time with their name lately, what's going on?" Instead of a simple, reassuring response, your partner snaps back, "Why are you so paranoid?" Or, "Do you not trust me?" The defensiveness isn't normal. It's almost as if they're trying to shut down the conversation before it even begins. They don't want to explain themselves, and that alone raises red flags. Then come the excuses. "We just have a lot in common. We work together, it's not like I can avoid them." You're overthinking things. No matter how valid your concerns are, they're quick to justify the time they spend with this person. If you notice them getting unusually frustrated when you bring it up, it's because they feel guilty, whether they're conscious of it or not. They may even start volunteering information without being asked, hoping to control the narrative and make it seem like there's nothing to worry about. But their words and their behavior don't align. The most toxic response is when they start gaslighting you, manipulating you into thinking you're the problem. If they make you feel crazy for noticing the changes in their behavior, it's a sign they're trying to deflect from the truth. They might say things like, "You're being insecure," or, "This is why I don't tell you things," making you question your own judgment. The goal of gaslighting is to make you doubt yourself so much that you stop asking questions altogether. And once you do, they're free to continue whatever is happening without consequence. If someone truly has nothing to hide, they won't get defensive. They won't feel the need to justify their time with someone else or make you feel bad for noticing a shift. The moment they start reacting as if they're being accused of something, even when you're just seeking clarity, it's a sign that there's more going on than they're willing to admit. One of the most painful realizations in a relationship is noticing that your partner seems happier when you're not around. It's not always obvious at first, but over time, you begin to see a clear difference in how they act with others versus how they act with you. Maybe you catch glimpses of them when they don't know you're watching. Laughing, animated, full of energy when they're talking to friends, coworkers, or even a specific person. Their smile is effortless, their conversations flow naturally, and their body language is open and engaged. But the moment they turn their attention to you, everything shifts. The laughter fades, their expression becomes neutral, and the warmth in their voice disappears. It's almost as if they have to force themselves to interact with you, as if being around you feels like an obligation rather than a joy. You start noticing a decline in shared laughter between the two of you. The inside jokes that used to bring you both to tears no longer spark the same reaction. Date nights or casual moments at home feel dull, lacking the fun and playfulness that once made your relationship special. When you try to joke around, they offer a weak smile or barely react at all. Conversations feel dry, as if they're just going through the motions rather than genuinely enjoying your company. Then there's the shift in their energy when they return home or see you after spending time elsewhere. If they've been out with friends or had a conversation with someone they're excited about, they come back looking refreshed, happy, and engaged, until they see you. Suddenly, they seem drained or uninterested, as if the emotional high they were riding has crashed the moment they entered your presence. They give you a quick greeting, maybe a distracted "hey," before retreating to their phone or another activity that doesn't involve you. The contrast becomes impossible to ignore. They light up for someone else in a way they no longer do for you. And even if they haven't crossed any physical boundaries, their emotional energy is already drifting. When someone is truly in love, their happiness naturally extends to the person they love. But if they seem noticeably more alive when they're away from you, it's a sign that their heart may already be somewhere else. There's a reason people say, trust your gut. In relationships, intuition often picks up on things before the mind fully processes them. You may not have concrete proof that something is wrong, but deep inside you feel it, the growing distance, the shift in energy, the unspoken tension in the air. It's that unsettling feeling that something has changed, even if you can't pinpoint exactly what. Your intuition isn't based on paranoia or insecurity, it's rooted in subtle cues your brain has been collecting over time. Maybe it's the way your partner avoids eye contact when you ask them a simple question. Maybe it's how they seem more protective of their phone or how their schedule suddenly feels unpredictable. It's in the way they hesitate before answering or the way their mood shifts when a particular name comes up. These aren't just random observations, they're patterns. And when patterns emerge, your intuition starts sending warning signals. At first you might dismiss it. You tell yourself you're overthinking or that you're just being insecure. But the feeling doesn't go away, it lingers in the back of your mind, making its presence known when you least expect it. It shows up in moments of silence when your partner is next to you but feels miles away. It creeps in when you see them smile at their phone, a smile you haven't seen directed at you in weeks. It gnaws at you when they suddenly become defensive over small things, making you feel guilty for even asking. What makes intuition so powerful is that it isn't based on a single event. It's the accumulation of countless small moments that, when put together, create a bigger picture. One forgotten date might not mean much on its own, but when paired with emotional distance, secrecy, and a lack of affection, it becomes part of a larger pattern that can't be ignored. Trusting your instincts in relationships is crucial because they often recognize emotional shifts before your rational mind does. You don't need undeniable proof or a confession to validate your feelings. If you feel something is off, there's a good chance you're right. And while confrontation might be uncomfortable, suppressing your emotions and pretending everything is fine only prolongs the inevitable. If your gut is telling you that your partner is falling for someone else, don't silence it. Instead, pay attention to the signs, observe their behavior, and most importantly, listen to yourself. Your intuition exists to protect you, not to deceive you. And when it whispers that something isn't right, it's worth listening. The realization that your partner may be falling for someone else is one of the most painful experiences in a relationship. The signs aren't always glaringly obvious at first, but when you step back and see the bigger picture, they become impossible to ignore. Emotional distance, secrecy, changes in behavior, and a lack of affection all point to one undeniable truth. Something has shifted and it's affecting the foundation of your relationship.